How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another exciting video. In the last video, we set up the whole backend for our application. And then in this section, we're going to start kind of tackling the front end and just doing a lot of the setup. So first thing we got to do is actually create our React front end. And the way we do that, first off, you need to have Node on your system. And then you can run the command npx create-react-app and then the name of the app, which I'm going to call front end. You just click enter and you let that create your React front end. And then I'm just going to let that finish and we'll continue off from there. All right, so that all finished up here. So now you should see your backend folder that you were working on in the previous sections, and then also this front end folder that just got created. All right, so now we're basically going to delete a lot of these starter files that are here since we don't need them. So I'm just going to go ahead, delete app.css, app.js, this test, this index.css. I'm basically going to delete everything except index.js. I'm going to go ahead, delete. And then I'm just going to empty my trash here. Don't want any trash on my system. All right, now that that trash is out of the way, we can go ahead and start to work on these files. So this index.js, we can get rid of this stuff here. Can get rid of this report web vitals, this index.css, and then this is all we need for the index.js. So now we just have to create this app component. So let's go ahead and do that. So that'll be right in the source, app.js. So import React from React, const app. And then export default app. And then within here, we're going to have a few things. For now, I'm just going to put a div. And then the things we're going to need. So first off, make sure that you navigate into the front end folder. And then once you're in here, you're going to want to install a few packages. So npm install, save, and then we want to have Axios. So this is for making our API requests. We want js-cookie. This is for kind of setting our cookies, which we're going to be using for the CSRF token. And then we're going to need React router DOM. We're going to need React Redux. We're going to need Redux. We're going to need Redux-thunk. We're going to need Redux DevTools extension. And then that should be it for the imports. So Axios, JS Cookie, React Router DOM for navigation, React Redux, Redux, and Redux-thunk for managing Redux in this application, and then Redux DevTools extension so we can see what's going on in our Redux store. So we'll let that install. All right, so when that's all finished up, now we can go ahead and continue off. So one thing I'm going to do is just kind of make the text bigger just so I don't have to do as much editing. So I'm going to increase the font size here and then also close that window. Maybe I can make it even bigger here just so the text is nice and clear. So I'm going to import browser router. I'm going to import it as router, and I'm also going to need some routes. This is going to come from React router DOM. And then in here, now I can use that router, and then I can create some routes. Now I'm also going to have to create those pages. So let me zoom out a little, bring this back, and let's create some folders we're going to need. I'm going to need a containers folder. This is going to be where I'm going to put my different pages. So things like my home page, my login page, sign up page, and my user dashboard. That's all going to go in here. I'm going to have a components folder. This is going to be for things like the navbar and any other components I have. I'm going to have higher order components for things like my layout. I'm going to have actions for my Redux actions. I'm going to have reducers for my Redux reducers. And I think that's all for the different folders I'm going to use. Then I'm going to create some of these different containers now. So home.js. I'm going to need register.js, login.js, and dashboard.js. And then for my components, going to need navbar.js for my navbar. And then I'm going to need my layout. So that'll be layout.js in higher order components. So create all of these different files, and then we're going to start working on them. So for the home, I'm going to import React from React. I'm going to close this up and make it a little bigger. So const home. This is going to be the round brackets, because I'm just going to bring in JSX here. So I'll just have a div for now that says home. And then I'm going to export default home. I'm going to go ahead and copy this. Go into register, paste, change this to be register. Save that. Go to login, paste it in here. Change this to be login. Save that. I can close these up for now. I'm going to go into dashboard, paste in here as well. Change this to be dashboard. Save that. Go into navbar, paste in here. Going to have this be navbar. Save that, and then go into layout, same thing. Just going to call this layout. And then this is what I'm going to have for now. So we're going to work on those in a bit. For now, I'm going to import these different things I just created. So I'm going to import my layout. This is coming from higher order components / layout. I'm going to import home from containers home. Then I'm going to need register, login, and dashboard. And now let's go ahead and create some routes for these. So first off, I'm going to have layout, which is going to wrap everything. And then I'm going to have my routes in here. So layout's basically just going to have the navbar, and then it's going to have one of these components. So I'm going to have a route with exact path. So the first one's going to be for my home component. So this will just be / for the path. Component will be home. And then I'm going to have a few more. So one for register, one for login, and then one for the dashboard. So register, login, and dashboard. There we go. So now these routes should all be set up. So the next thing I'm going to work on is the navbar. So let's go ahead, bring the navbar. And then I'm going to just bring in some Bootstrap styling. So all you need to do is Google Bootstrap, and then the first link is what you're going to want here. And then let's go ahead and go to the docs. And then I'm going to bring in this CDN. So there's a link right here for the CSS. So just go ahead, copy that. Then go into public index.html. And then right above here. So first off, I'm going to change the title just to be session auth. And then I'm going to paste that link right above here. And then just clean that up a little. There we go. So now we have Bootstrap in our application. And then I'm going to search for Navbar. So now let's go ahead and find a nice Navbar. So this one has a few too many features that I don't need. This one's too simple. And then this one looks about right. So we're going to copy that. Can close this up. And then basically going to remove this here. And then just paste in my Navbar code. Let's fix up this indenting. And just kind of cleaning things up a little here. All right. And then I'm also going to change this class. Just going to select all the classes. I can do that with Command D in VS Code. And then I'm going to change this to be class name. So now I'm going to go ahead and do npm run start, and let's see what we have. All right, there we go. So now we have this layout showing here. And kind of the reason for that is that we have this layout component with this stuff in the middle here. And our layout component currently looks just like this. So we're just displaying the text layout, which is exactly what we see here. So now what we've got to do is we got to adjust this layout a little. So let's bring in props here, and instead of doing props, I'm just going to destructure props and just build it, bring in the children component here. And then I'm going to bring in the navbar. So import navbar from .. components navbar. And then within here, I'm simply just going to have navbar and then children. And then I can also bring in a React fragment. Then instead of a div, I can use a fragment. And now let's go ahead and see what things look like. And here we go. Now we have that navbar from Bootstrap, and now we just have to go ahead and style it a bit. And not just style it, but also change it up. Okay, so within here, first thing I'm going to do is bring in link, because we're going to need that. Import link from React router DOM. And then I'm going to have link here. And then this is going to be exact to, and this is going to go to slash. And then instead of navbar, I'm going to have session auth. So now we have something like this where we have session auth and these different links. And then also I'm just going to change all of these to be single quotes, since I like it being single quotes instead of double quotes. There we go. So now the next thing I'm going to do is get rid of some of these here. So I don't need these. I also don't need this. I don't need active class here. And this is going to be a nav link, which I'm going to bring in. So we're going to have link, and we're going to have nav link. So now this is going to be exact to, and here I'm going to have a slash. This is going to be for the home. And now what I'm going to do here is I'm basically going to have some logic later where it's going to check, like, is user authenticated? It's going to be like a ternary expression. If that is true, So if the user's authenticated, I'm going to show the dashboard and the logout button. Otherwise, I'm going to show the login and sign up pages. So I'm going to have something that looks like this. And then for this dashboard and logout, I can have a function within here where I just where I call that function and it's going to display my dashboard and logout. And I can call that something like auth links. So it's the links you see when you're authenticated. And then when you're a guest, when you're not authenticated, you'll see the login and sign up. So I can have something like guest links. And then here I would just have a piece of state. This would be from Redux. And it would be something like is authenticated. And then if that was true, then we're going to show our auth links. So our dashboard and the logout button. Otherwise, we're going to show the guest links. So this is ultimately what it's going to look like. For now, I'm just going to have these guest links, and then later I'm going to apply that logic. All right, so since we're going to have a function here, I can't have these round brackets here since we're not just going to have JSX now. So I'm going to use the curly braces. Whoop. Then I'm going to indent everything here. I'm going to have a return. And then that return is going to wrap all of this stuff. And then at the top here, I'm going to have my const guest links. I'm going to use the round brackets because this is going to be JSX that it's returning. And then the JSX that it's returning, it's just going to be these links. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in fragment. Right in here. And then I'm going to have two of these links displaying. So one is going to be login. One is going to be, let's say, register. So /login /register. And I don't really need this exact here. So login, register. These are both nav links. And for now, I'm going to be displaying that. So let's see what that looks like. All right, so it's not showing. And that isn't showing because I didn't do this correctly. So this should just be equals. So guest links are equal to this JSX. And now we have our login and register, so now we can navigate between everything, so that is good. And now let's make this home component look a little better. So let's look for our Jumbotron. Now I have some sad news about the Jumbotron. So here in the Bootstrap 5 documentation, the Jumbotron component is removed in favor of utility classes like background light for the background color, and then padding classes to control padding. So we can have a little moment of silence for our Jumbotron. It is no longer with us, so instead we're going to have to improvise a little to create our Jumbotron. But that's okay. We can manage. So let's go ahead, open up home.js, and let's go ahead and create something that resembles a Jumbotron. So first thing, I want to wrap everything in a container. And then I'm going to have a div. And then this div is kind of going to be our Jumbotron. Now in Bootstrap 4, we had a Jumbotron class. But now we no longer have our Jumbotron class. So instead, I'm going to do something like have a little bit more margin at the top. Going to have some padding. So I'm going to have padding of 5 here. And then let's also have background light. And then this will basically resemble a Jumbotron. I'm going to have my h1 tag. This is going to basically just say welcome to session auth. This is going to have a class name. of display 4. Going to have a paragraph with the class name of lead. And then I'll just say something like, this is a wonderful application with session authentication in React and Django, something like that. And then I'm going to have a horizontal rule. Class name is going to be my-4. This is a self-closing tag. Then I'm going to have a paragraph. It's just going to have default Bootstrap styling. It's just going to say, click the button below to log in. And then below here, I'm going to have a login button. So I have to make sure I import link. This is from React router DOM. So let's do link. This is going to have a class name of button, button-primary, button-large, and it's going to go /login. And then it's just going to say login. Let's see how that looks. And there we go. We have a nice looking Jumbotron. If I click the button, now I navigate to the login page. So last thing I'm going to do is just set up Redux in the application, and then I'm going to wrap up this first section on the React setup. Let's go ahead. I'm going to close up some of these files. And then in my actions, I'm going to need a types file. And then I'm also going to have a file for my auth actions. So I'm going to call that auth.js. I'm going to have these for now. I'm going to work on them later, but just to have them here. I'm going to close that up. And then in the reducers, I'm going to have my auth reducers in here. And then I'm going to have an index reducer, which is just going to bring that in. And then if I had other reducers, this index reducer would kind of combine all those reducers. So I'm going to work on this in a little bit. For now, in the source folder, I'm going to create a store.js. This is where I'm going to configure the store. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to need a few imports. I'm going to need, let's also close this. So I'm going to need create store, apply middleware. This is coming from Redux. I'm going to need to import compose with DevTools. This is coming from Redux DevTools extension. And that's the extension that kind of lets us analyze our Redux store and our different dispatch states. I'm going to need thunk, which is coming from redux-thunk. And then I'm also going to need root reducer, which is coming from our reducers folder, which I also have to create. So that's this index.js file I created. And then here's where I would kind of configure that. So you do import combine reducers from Redux. And then also you have to bring in auth for, oh my goodness. There we go. So auth from /auth. And then in here I can export default combine reducers and then auth. And then any other reducers that you make, you would just bring them in here. So you import them. So import something else from /something else. And then you would just bring that in here like that. So that's how the combine reducers works. But in this application, we're only going to have one reducer, which is just our auth. So that's all we're going to have. And then let's go back to our store, finish configuring this. So I'm going to need an initial state. So initial state, it's just going to be an empty object. I'm going to need middleware, which is just going to be a array here with our thunk middleware. gonna need my store, and this is where I configure my store, and I do that through this create store function. And then in here I have to pass a few things. So root reducer, my initial state, and also compose with DevTools, apply middleware, and then spread operator and middleware. And then last thing I have to do is just export default store. So this is how I configure that store. Now I can go back into my app.js, and then I can kind of do the setup so that we have Redux in this application. So I need two things in order to get this to work. I need the provider tag, which is coming from React Redux. So import provider from React Redux. And then I'm going to import store from store, which is what I just created. And now with these two things, I can set up the Redux store in our application. So I use the provider tag, and I set the store attribute or prop here to be store. And there we go. So now I just have to wrap everything I just made in the provider tag. So I'm just going to cut it and paste it right in here, fix up the indenting a bit. And there we go. Just like that, now I have Redux in my application. So now let's go ahead, see if everything's good. Looks like it is. So my app still looks the exact same, except now I have Redux configured. So now the next thing I'm gonna kind of end up tackling in the next sections is kind of implementing the actions and reducers for doing things like logging in, signing up, logging out, deleting our account, and all those other functionalities we created in our backend. So now we're going to see how to do these things through our front end using our backend API. And that stuff we're going to be tackling in the next section since this setup has gone long enough. So hope you guys enjoyed the section, and make sure you leave a nice big like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this kind of content and want to see more of the stuff. Also make sure to click that bell icon if you want to get notifications. And also make sure to click that link in the description to join the Facebook group if you want to end up posting any questions, or if you have errors along the way while you're going through any of these tutorials, you can go ahead and message me or just make a post, and then I will get back to you and help you out. And I will see you in the next section where we probably end up just implementing the register functionality.